Dirty Rhetoric started probably about 4 years ago. I knew Peter, or I met Peter through his blog. He wrote about speech writing and rhetoric. And I was writing a different blog, and we met through Twitter, about presentations, executive presentations, and how to speak better. We talked about the idea of rhetoric and the challenge that it had, that it was A, so useful, but B, so inaccessible, probably because of the Latin names and the bad reputation it has around empty rhetoric from politicians. So it really started there.
Absolutely. And over the months that followed that first meeting, we did a lot of work together looking at how rhetoric works in communications. And we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we could find some way to crystallize this into a neat, simple little product that would help communicators to give their work more punch and more oomph.
The response to Dirty Rhetoric has been really quite surprising. I think for me, it was because when we initially started talking about it, I had a very fixed audience in mind. Pretty much anyone we've spoken to says, oh, I could use that. I shouldn't have been surprised because most people, if they can communicate better, they can do their job better.
I've had the chance to use it in front of several classroom settings, all business education classes. We've used it with marketing people, salespeople, presenters, and they've all been pleasantly challenged by A, finding new ways to communicate, but B, the cards themselves had led them to think about their message differently and their product differently. Well, the main challenge that communicators face today is the amount of communication that's out there. You've got the internet, you've got multi-channel communications. So it's not just about creating a great message, it's about making sure that your message is seen or heard or read. And that, for a lot of people, is becoming impossible. What Dirty Rhetoric does is it communicates these very simple but very powerful word formulae that work like a lighthouse to raise your message out of the sea of communication that's all around us.
Dirty Rhetoric is really a set of 53 cards. So the rhetorical techniques that Peter talked about earlier, there's one per card, and you can use these in a number of different ways. We've invented a few different games as we've been testing this. One very simple example is something we call writer's block. I'm sure everyone's been in that situation where you've written something, you're in front of a computer screen and you're stuck, not because you haven't, because it basically just doesn't sound very good. Shuffle the cards, pick one out, and try and apply the rhetorical technique that's on the card. You'd be surprised because you think, well, that would be pretty difficult. It's surprisingly freeing. It's a way of really getting the creative juices going, and you come out with a rewritten paragraph or sentence, and you get some real gems in there.
The design of the cards was driven by usability, by being simple and straightforward to work with and to learn from. So when you look at a card, the first thing that will hit you is a nice, clear English name. You'll see the colour of the card. Different colours tell you whether that card is for description, persuasion, whether it's to establish trust, or to generate, my favourite category, a soundbite. You'll see a couple of examples of what the technique sounds like.
I think for me, I think it's one of the most frustrating things in the world when you have this idea or product or something you've been working on and you just can't get it across. And for me, that's what rhetoric's all about. How can you use something fairly simple that will really get your message through and cut through the clutter?